Hey guys, Daniel here. This is another video. My next guest, he needs no introduction. He's comic book royalty. It's my pleasure to introduce the legendary Chris Claremont. All it took was loads of blackmail, but I finally got him onto the channel. You may know him best for his work in the X-Men, where he wrote, everyone's favorite mutants for 17 years. He wrote some brilliant story arcs such as God Loves, Man Killed, the Dark Phoenix Saga, Days of Future Past. He's the co-creator or creator of characters such as Gambit, Sabretooth, Kitty Pryde, Rogue, Jubilee, Emma Frost, Mystique. I could literally list all the rest, would be here all day. He worked on the iconic four-issue miniseries with Frank Miller, Wolverine. He's also gotten to work in comics like Fantastic Four, Excalibur, Captain Britain, Alien slash Predator, and he has a new Gambit series coming from Marvel soon. But yeah, like I said, all it took was a ton of blackmail. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
Fine so today. It's bitter cold. It's about, I guess, with wind chill, 2 Fahrenheit.
Really? Normally,
So what, that's
my guess.
minus 20 centigrade.
Yeah, normally when my guests are in America, it's always a lovely weather, and I'm here in Ireland and it's dark and cold. But I'm glad to hear, in a weird way, that you're also experiencing the same misery. So yeah, what a lovely way to start the interview. But we were just
Actually, I should tell you, it's a beautiful day. I mean, the sky is clear, the sun is shining. There's a little dust of cloud, but it's just bloody cold.
Yeah, never mind. It's not the same then if you're experiencing good weather. But no, actually, we were just touching on before we begin. You just took down your Christmas tree. If you watch my recent interviews, you could see it right there. So I guess we're connected in that way. But yeah, absolutely. So another thing I want to touch on just before we get into it, let me take you back a little bit. How did you first get into comics? What was that first comic book memory you could think of?
Reading, oddly enough, a magazine from the UK called Eagle.
Wow, yes, really? Eagle.
My grandmother got me a subscription back when I was younger than you. And I was in love with Dan Dare and Heroes of Spartan, which is Frank Hampson did the art on one and Frank Bellamy did the art on the other. And as the magazine was actually created by a C of E minister. So one of the series that they ran in it was the life of Jesus done as a superhero, which is kind of really cool in a way.
Yeah.
There was this, I still remember it after more years than I'll confess to, because they were one page chapters. So in this one, he and his mates are playing one day, and a friend gets bitten by an asp. So rather than doing anything magical that was for later in his life, he hops over, yanks out his pocket knife, and does perfect Boy Scout first aid. The 2 X's on the fang marks, squeezing, sucking the blood out, spitting it out. So if one wanted an ideal primer on how follow the example of the Lord, bing, you were there. But the thing with Dan Dare was it was full color, it was 2 pages weekly, and it was brilliant. There's no better way to say it. That was my introduction to comics, and that was where I guess I fell in love with the medium.
Yeah.
Because if this stuff was so cool, it was just unbelievable. And then, of course, I started reading American comics, and it was boring as
you didn't enjoy them?
No, because we're talking, God help me, the late 50s, very early 60s. Most of the, you're talking DC, which was boring, forgive me. But, Stan hadn't really kicked off the Marvel age. And it was just the same old. Then Spider-Man came along and the new Marvel stuff, and but by then I'd given it up. I would go and read comics when I would go get my haircut.
Yes.
Until about mid 1966, when I discovered FF50, FF48.
Yes.
And they ran into the Watcher. Well, and then the Silver Surfer, and then Galactus. And I thought, holy cow, this is really, really good. What else do they do? And that led me to Thor. And then that led me to Roy Thomas and John Buscema.
Yeah.
on the Avengers, and I just fell in love with the core Marvel line and just kept reading it. 12 cents an issue. It wasn't bank breaking,
Yeah,
even
definitely.
with a 50-cent allowance. But and then when I was in university, my school had a policy of shutting down from basically New Year's to the 1st of March, ostensibly for something they called field period, which is where students were expected to go out for 2 months and get a practicum in their major field.
Yeah.
We all figured it was basically to get everybody out of the campus for the 2 coldest months of the year, so the school wouldn't have to pay for heat. We were cynical. And my ambition, we had a friend, my parents had a friend, Al Jaffe of Mad Magazine fame. He did the fold in back covers for 70 years. And I thought it would be so cool to get a job as a gopher or an assistant at Mad. And what I didn't know was that Al basically called up my parents and said, there's no way in hell that I'm going to get Chris a job at Mad Magazine. We do there. I've subsequently learned what everybody did there. They went over to Bill Gates' house and got totally hammered while he plotted out the magazine. So he then asked, does Chris have any interest in comic books? Because I have a friend. And so I said, told my parents, sure, why not? What the heck? And the next thing I know, the phone rings and the voice on the other end says, hey there, true believer, this is Stanley.
Wow.
Yeah, he actually did that when he called. Well,
really?
When he
introduced himself
for a friend. Well, he was calling me for his friend Al. So he gave me the full court press and we talked and I said, I'm doing this, I'm looking for what everyone now calls an internship, but then it was just, basic job for 2 months. And Stan said, well, we're a very poor company. We're barely making ends meet. There's no way I could fit in another salary, especially for only a couple of months. And I said, well, gee, sir, technically, I'm actually not allowed to ask for wages. I'm doing this for college credit. And he said, you're hired. So nothing like telling the boss that you will work for free to get a job.
That's a great way to get hired.
So that's how I got in.
Yeah. And so what was your first?
I mean, now they have interns and it's a much more formal process, but then it was simply, being in the right place at the right time with the right friend of my parents' friend. Yeah, so I was there for 2 months and I did everything, proofreading, going to the coffee shop to get snacks for people, sandwiches for people, answering fan mail, you name it. I ended up doing it. And in the process, Roy Thomas and Neil Adams were doing their arc. And one of the things I was in the right place for was they were trying to figure out how to resolve the story. I mean, they'd established the Sentinels as this basically undefeatable clutch of robots. How were the X-Men at this point in the arc had been hammered? How could they win? And so I said, I spoke up without even thinking. I said, well, technically, if the Sentinels are there to destroy mutant kind, scientists theorize that mutants are a product of solar radiation. They mutate, that mutates our genetic structure. So perhaps if you want to get rid of mutants, the answer is get rid of the sun. And the next thing we know, Neil drew this magnificent full-page splash of the sun, which is so big it won't even fit on the page, with the Sentinels just streaking down into the middle of it. And that's the end of them until they come back 3 or 4 years later, which oddly enough was based on another plot I'd sent in. So that was how things happened. Yeah, I sort of jumped on the X-Men apparently right off the bat.
And so what was your first comic book work at Marvel as a writer? Did you jump straight into the X-Men or?
Oh God, no. Actually, my first technical comic book work was that back then
Oh
when
yeah.
I wrote, well, we would do one for the annuals. We would do one page. Marvel would do one page, you know, truth behind this, look behind the scenes of how things were
Oh
happening.
yes.
And so I did two pages of Sergeant Fury, ladies I have known and loved, and Nazis I have known and killed, or known and fought.
Yeah.
And for that, I was paid like $10 a page. So that's technically where I actually made my first comic book sale and my first bout of writing. The first short story I wrote was 5 years later, when it was a sample, 8-page
Yeah.
horror story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That still hasn't been finished or seen print.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm sure there's still time. Maybe we'll get it soon enough. But I think that jumping straight into the X-Men would have been brilliant. Because how did the X-Men come about to you? How did you end up working on the X-Men? Did you pitch to them or?
Oh God, no.
No, really?
Well, after Roy, the problem with the X-Men, it had always up to that point, and we're talking 1968 now, had always been a mid-list title.
Really?
Never really caught on with anyone.
Oh, really?
And the folk, well, because it was a group, a team, which is always a challenge.
Yeah.
The Avengers, remember, was made up of characters who had their own individual titles. Thor had his own title. Iron Man and Captain America were teamed up in a title, so that they could build an audience base outside of the team. Much like with the movies, you establish the individual movie focused on Cap and Thor and Tony, and then you bring them together with the Avengers. So the audience is already primed for that sort of thing. And remember that two of the team never got a movie chance until much, much later, Hawkeye and the Widow. So you get the guy, you push the guys out front, you bring, and the Hulk, sorry, I forgot about, the Hulk had his own series as well. So he had his own movie. So the X-Men didn't have that advantage. They were a team of kids. And the foundation of the series was kids learning to use their powers. So they weren't as accomplished as the grown-ups. But it never caught on. It just, Stan and Jack did the first 10 or a dozen issues, and then it just meandered through the line. Steranko did 3 issues, which were beautiful. And then Roy and Neil came in. But in those days, there was no direct market. So you published the book, and then you had to wait 8 months or 9 months for the sales figures to come in. From the news agents. And up until then, the X-Men had always been mid-list or lower. Then suddenly you have the Neil Adams, Roy Thomas arc run, and the sales went up like a rocket. But the book had been canceled 7 months before the sales, 6 months before the sales came in, and Neil had already gone back to DC.
Oh no!
To do Batman.
Oh yeah.
So when Marvel realized they had a potential hit on their hands, there was no way to exploit it because the talent that created weren't around anymore. So they put it on hold. They said, we'll keep guest starring them in other books to see if they catch on, if they make a difference in their sales, and then we can reboot this situation 2 or 3 years down the line. Well, 2 or 3 years down the line, Stan thinks, let's give it another shot. But let's try something different. We won't reboot it with the same cast. We'll go international.
Yes.
Because we want to try and build an overseas market. So we suddenly have Colossus, who is Russian, which was actually a lot more groundbreaking and daring in those days than it would be today, simply because he was coming from the Soviet Union.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know it's before your time, but once upon a time, there was the Soviet Union, otherwise known as the Evil Empire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, so we'd have Colossus, then we'd have Nightcrawler, who's Kurt Wagner, who's German.
Yes.
He's not that far off the beaten path, but he looks like a demon. We have Thunderbird, who is an Apache. We have Aurora, who is African and a woman. Woo.
Yeah, exactly. And really nice lineup there. But the thing,
it's a great lineup. It's a great bunch of characters. And at the time, they had the ideal artist to bring them to life, Dave Cockrum.
Oh, yes, Dave Cock. That's a brilliant team right there.
Well, he created the visuals on all the characters.
Yeah.
On those characters, the new characters. So at that time, the person who ended up writing it was Len Wein, who also had the advantage of being editor-in-chief.
Yeah.
But to cover their backs, Marvel decided we do it as a quarterly, a giant-sized quarterly. So you'd have 35 pages, 36 pages every 3 months. That way, if it was a disaster, we wouldn't, we'd have maybe 2 issues invested in it, not a problem. If it was a success, we could go the other route.
Yeah.
But, so Giant Size 1 comes out, and it turns out to be a surprise hit. Unfortunately, things had happened back at the office. Len decided he didn't want to be editor-in-chief anymore. But at the same time, Marvel decided they didn't want to do quarterlies anymore, so X-Men would become a bi-monthly.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, from Len's perspective, he felt his exit deal with Marvel was 4 monthly titles. And 4 of the key monthly titles. I mean, I think the Hulk, Spider-Man, I forget the other 2. But he didn't feel he could do the X-Men as a bi-monthly with those other 4 titles. So he gave it up. Now, at this time, I was working full-time for Marvel as Len's associate editor. So essentially, the 2 of us ran the company.
Yeah.
And I was in love with Dave's design, with Dave's concepts. And oddly enough, I'd come up with the get out of jail free conclusion of the Giant Size.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, well, Len couldn't figure out how to get rid of Krakoa.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, that's simple. All an island is the top of a big mountain. Well, you want to get rid of a mountain? You've got 13 X-Men running around, more power than you know what to do with. Just cut off the top.
Yeah.
And let the rotation of the Earth on its axis and the revolution of the Earth on its axis and the rotation of the Earth around the sun do the rest. So if you wait 5 minutes, it's suddenly 60,000 feet up in the air. You wait an hour and it's suddenly 200 miles behind the planet. And it, an island can't exactly fly after you or swim through space. Yeah. And the farther out of the terrestrial gravity well it gets, the less coherent it becomes, and all of its substance will split apart and float away. Bearing in mind, at the same time, the solar system is moving through galactic space as the Milky Way galaxy is moving out from the core. So, give it a year. There's no more Krakoa. It's like a year or 2 behind us in galactic terms. So I thought it was an easy out, and Len agreed. So I came up with a solution, not only for Roy, but also for Len.
It's not half bad.
Fate works in mysterious ways.
Definitely.
Any road, I basically tackled him and said, I want this book. And Len, to get me off of him, said, okay.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And so who was your first lineup working on the X-Men? Did you get to choose the lineup, or were they just kind of...
Oh, no. The lineup had been chosen for Giant Size #1.
Oh, yes. It was that exact lineup that you just got to write for them?
Yeah. I just came in for the second issue. But this is fine because this is the first time. It was a unique experience in Marvel history because I was getting a team.
Yeah.
The issue after they were created. Nothing whatsoever had been established about the new characters other than Aurora's from Africa, Kurt's from Germany, Colossus is from Russia, Thunderbird is from the Arizona. I think that's it. You know, I mean, the only established character, previously established character was what's his face from Japan, whose name I forget.
Yeah.
And he quit in the first pages of the first issue 94. So, and sadly, oh, I keep forgetting about Logan, Wolverine.
Oh, you can't forget
who
Wolverine.
Leonard created earlier in the Hulk. Sorry, in the Hulk.
Yeah, the Hulk. Yeah, definitely.
So the decision had been made by Len. When you're writing a comic, the way to really punch the reader in the gut is to spend a year or two or whatever having the reader fall in love with a character, and then you do something awful like, oh, kill him off.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a quarterly, that, waiting 20 issues to bond the character with the reader, that you're now talking 4 or 5 years down the line, and A, there's no guarantee that the book will last that long, and B, it's unfair to make the reader wait that long. So you go with the alternative, which is doing it right off the bat and grabbing them by surprise.
Yeah.
Introduce a brand new character, make him really cool, and then run him over with a bus.
Spoken like a true writer, just kill them off immediately.
Well, no, but these are the two parameters.
Yeah.
So what you end up with, and there was nothing I could do about it because we were on dead. The other thing to bear in mind, forgive me, I talk like I write. I'm paid by the word.
No, go on. It's brilliant. This is what we're all here for.
The other thing to bear in mind is with a quarterly, you have 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
Which means if the book were quarterly and I were going to make these changes, I and Dave Cockrum would have time to fiddle and maybe change our mind and say, hey, we don't want to kill off Thunderbird. We want to play with him a while. Let's not do it.
Yeah.
Sadly, with the bi-monthly, essentially issue 94 was fully penciled. We just had to tweak the ending when the Blackbird blows up for the shock surprise cliffhanger.
Oh,
ending.
yeah.
But 95, we had to restructure from the get-go because now we had to end it in a way that dealt with the loss of Thunderbird, but also set up the fact that we had another issue in 2 months.
Yeah, definitely.
So we just basically, regrettably, I just went with what we had. Because I didn't know diddly squat about the characters. I had to figure out what I'd gotten myself into. And then Dave and I had to figure out what the hell we do next.
Yeah.
Because Len wasn't, so Thunderbird sadly died.
Yeah.
And we're left on our own. So the next questions to answer is, who are these 4 new characters? Because nobody really knew anything about Logan, or Aurora, or Peter, or Kurt.
Yeah.
And the thing that Dave, neither of us like cliches.
Oh,
and
no.
For example, Kurt was a total cliche. Hi, I look like a demon, therefore I will act like a demon.
Yeah.
Wow. From our point of view, dude, you've looked like this since you were born. Why are you a demon? Especially since you are apparently a devout Roman Catholic.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, actually, no, Lutheran. Sorry, Lutheran.
Oh, he's Lutheran.
He's German. Everybody's a Lutheran.
Oh, as you can see, I'm too busy reading comics to listen in the important classes in school. But yeah, no, I love how you
it's like saying.
Sorry, you can go on.
Hi. No, I was just going to say, hi, you're from Ireland. That means you're Buddhist, right?
Yeah, well, how did you know? Was it obvious? I could turn my camera on. We have a little Buddha statue right there, but alas, the camera's kind of
no. That's the thing. There are certain cliches that you can't really escape from. But our thought was, all characters who look like demons end up acting like demons. Totally boring. So the thought was, holy cow, what if he likes it? What if he figures I look this way because God decided to make me look this way? Who am I to argue with the Almighty? I'll just do the best I can to be the best person I can and live according to the commandments, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And it from our perspective, it was totally cool because it played against everybody's stereotypes. And that was, I think, our first and primal instinct to play against stereotypes. Or every comic has a girl. The FF have a girl. The Avengers have a girl. The Justice League have a girl. There's always a girl. Okay, it's Wonder Woman, not Wonder Girl, but you know,
Yeah.
Wonder Girl went with the Titans. Why? Why? Because they need a girl. Why? Because the guys have to romance someone. Why? That was for every question. The answer was why, and from my perspective, I come from a line of really seriously not boring women. I mean,
yeah.
well, I mean, my aunt started out as one of the first molecular chemists, I think, to go to end up in I think either Cambridge.
Wow, not bad.
My mother went to London School of Economics and served 2 years in the RAF. Yeah, forgive me. I'm from the other side of the Irish Sea.
It's okay. Don't worry. You can be forgiven.
Rather than the other side of the Atlantic. My accent notwithstanding.
Yeah, just this once will let it slide.
No, I mean, my best friend was during her career an audio tech for National Public Radio here in New York. Well, here in the States. And one of my scarier moments was waking up in the morning to listen to Morning Edition, which is their, you know, like the BBC Morning News.
Yeah.
And hearing her broadcast from Sarajevo to tell the reporter to duck because they're shooting at us. And you could hear the bullets go by.
Wow.
And there's nothing guaranteed to wake you up on a Saturday morning like hearing your best friend being machine gunned.
Yeah.
And for 30 seconds, one's heart stopped. And then we thought, wait, no, they're broadcasting this. If something awful had happened, they wouldn't be doing this. So everything has to be okay.
Yeah.
On the other hand, scariest moment ever.
Yeah, exactly. Cannot have been fun.
Well, you know, I have another friend who's won just about every major journalism award, an academic award in the United States, and whose specialty, you know, back in those days was the Ebola virus. So every time there was an outbreak in Africa, she'd take her MOP suit, her antivirus suit, and go out there and find it.
Yeah, wow.
So, I mean, I know a lot of women who do not just sit in the background and fantasize about great new costumes to wear.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you can see that in your X-Men run. Like you look at it.
But the idea is let's, you know, Storm was orphaned in Cairo, and she made her own way from then on. What kind of person would that leave her? As with Nightcrawler, he looks like a demon.
Yeah.
The thing with Wolverine was looking at the way Dave drew him. Apparently, Len had intended Wolverine to be a teenager.
Oh, really?
And that the claws came out of the gloves.
Oh.
And both Dave and I thought that was not the most brilliant of ideas, simply because, like Iron Man's armor, if the claws come out of the gloves, then anybody can wear them, and anybody can have claws, and that's silly.
Yes.
So I think with issue 98 or 90, Dave had did a sketch on the back of
Sorry, Chris, can you see me? You appear to have just frozen just there.
Yeah, you've frozen.
Oh yeah, you
Ah,
can.
there
You're
you go.
back. Perfect. You were just saying Dave did a sketch.
Your internet connection is unstable.
I
So
see that all the time. It's such a
Dave did a
pain.
sketch on the, did a layout on the back of one of the pages of 98
Yeah.
of the hand with the claws coming out of the back of his hand. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's the most disgusting thing. Oh God, let's do it.
Yeah, it's easy as
So,
that. Yeah.
up, and you're freezing up again.
Oh, am I? Can you? Sorry.
Come on.
Oh, you're back.
Come on. Up, there you go.
Perfect.
It's on a time delay, which in turn sets up the moment in 99 where he cuts himself out of the restraints, and everyone, Gene's reaction is, you never told us they came, the claws were a part of you, and gave me the opportunity for the classic Logan response was, you never asked.
Yeah, that's classic Wolverine right there.
Well, because he volunteers nothing. If you want to know anything, ask him. He'll either answer or he won't, but he volunteers nothing. But going back to where this started, Dave didn't draw him in Giant Size #1 as a kid. I mean, the first we saw of him when he confronts Charlie in his boss's office, he looked like a grown-up. He not only a grown-up, but an old grown-up, a more mature grown-up. So we both went with the idea that why have him be a kid? Why not make Logan old? He's got a healing factor. He could be 1 billion years old and nobody'd know it.
Yeah.
So that gave us our parameters for the cast. Colossus, ironically, the Alan Davis cover.
And I got this from you when we met at Ireland Comic Con 2 years ago. I came out, you were standing at your table and got signed from you right at the bottom there. One of my prized possessions. I specifically just pulled it out for this. But yes,
thank you.
Wolverine is not from it all. I absolutely love it. But so your Wolverine series with Frank Miller, and where you really did explore that character, did that come around the same time as you working on X-Men? Because you came up with a lot of like the core character of Wolverine. Like you came
everything.
You came up with the iconic line, "I'm the best there is at what I do."
And the best there is at what I do, but what I do best isn't very nice.
The iconic line. But yeah, so you kind of came up with a lot of the main characteristics of Wolverine, which we can still see now.
Which Hugh Jackman used in the movies.
Yeah, exactly. And so how did that series come about?
No, Frank and I, it was the mid 80s.
Yeah.
We were coming back from San Diego. I was Comic-Con. I was giving him a lift up to LA. We were going to a party at Mark Evanier's house. And we got stuck in this incredible tailback on I-5, Interstate 5.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you know, but Interstate 5 runs up at least for about halfway up to Los Angeles from San Diego, runs up the coast.
Wow,
and to the east of the interstate are mountains. To the left of the interstate is the Pacific Ocean, which I don't know, if you may have looked at a map and seen, it's a very big ocean.
Yeah, it certainly is, yes.
So the interstate is stopped dead in San Onofre because the Immigration and Naturalization Service is looking for illegal Mexican immigrants. Yes, even then they were still trying to get that stopped. The interesting thing about where we were stopped is to the west of the interstate, on the beach, oddly enough, is a really big nuclear plant, the San Onofre nuclear plant, which is like 3 reactors. But there are 3 reactors that are about, maybe if it's lucky and you have the gift of God on your side, 100 feet above high tide.
Yeah.
That's not where one would normally put a nuclear reactor on the shore of the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, now that you bring it up, I can certainly see that there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a disaster movie waiting to happen. And then to the east of it is one of the biggest Marine Corps bases in the United States. So we're stuck there watching people, And so I took advantage of it and pitched Frank the concept. And we discussed it for about 2 hours while we were stuck there. And the idea was he didn't want to do a punch and hit arc, and I didn't either.
Yeah.
We both loved Japan. We both wanted to do a story that got into his head and enabled you to learn something significant about it. And I wanted to do a love story.
Yeah.
And so what we ended up with is what you have there.
A few brilliant pages, yeah.
Is, oh, but that's it, you know, and the irony is the first that image of Mariko is Frank doing Frank.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. But then you go like 4 pages further on and you have the image of her beaten up by her theoretical fiance that's inked by Joe Rubinstein. And you can see the difference in presentation that Frank doing his own work versus Frank being inked by someone else. And the whole idea with it was to create a situation for Logan where, see, for me, he's always been a bicameral personality. Half of him is a beast. He eats, he drinks, he punches people out, he just lives by his own rules.
Yeah.
But the other half wants to be a samurai, wants to be a man of honor, wants to be worthy of Mariko.
Yeah.
And he can never reconcile the two. And the cover on closest to you of him on his knees is when he's everything is utterly failed. He has disgraced himself.
Yeah.
That's why the key thing about the fight with Mariko's father, Shingen, in the first issue, is that it's with bokan, with wooden swords, because Shingen is saying, yeah, you got adamantium claws, you're a superhero, you're invulnerable, you could kill me without a second thought. But where's the honor in that? All it proves is that you're an animal. I'm a man. You want to face me as a man? Take your best shot, I'll kick your ass.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens. And the rest of the series is Wolverine's desperate desire to make himself worthy.
Yeah.
And then of course that leads into the 2-parter that Paul Smith and I did in Uncanny, which is the wedding. And then thanks to Mastermind, it goes totally south.
Yeah, and I think with Wolverine, there's often a tragedy in this character, you know, when you look at a character like Wolverine, because he's just been through so much and he continues to go through so much. And you know, he always comes through it even stronger than last time, always, you know, popping his claws out. So do you think there's a certain tragedy to a character like Wolverine?
I think tragedy is almost too easy. I think the thing with Logan is the constant conflict that he has with him in equal parts, the ability to be heroic and to be a total disaster. Yeah. But see, this all derives from my vision of who he is. And in my conception of the character, which is not official canon by any means, his father is Sabretooth.
Yes. And I love Sabretooth. He's one of my favorite characters. He's so cool. And I know that did you come up with, was it you that came up with the concept that every time, I think on Wolverine's birthday, was that you?
Yeah, he kills him.
Yeah. Could you tell us all that story for anyone who's unaware?
Yeah, it's very simple. Every year on his birthday, or whenever he feels like it, because otherwise they'd all be really old, Sabretooth shows up and fights Logan. And what he wants is for Logan to kill him.
Yeah.
That's all. Kill me. And Logan refuses. He just stands there, takes it. Sabretooth kills him, dumps him in the water, leaves him to die, walks away, because both of them know they'll heal. This is not for real. It's the principle of the thing.
Yeah.
And what happened was way back, higher authority, way up there at the top, sent down an angel to do a job on Earth.
Yeah.
And the angel came down, and Sabretooth caught an eye and thought, haven't seen one of them before. Let's have some shenanigans.
in like classic Sabretooth fashion, if anyone would ever do it.
Yeah. But the angel is Seraph, who founded the Princess Bar in Madripoor. Seraph is very short. That's where Logan gets his height, not from his father, but from his mother.
Yeah.
So they have their shenanigans, and nature takes its course, but higher authority is a merciful deity and says, okay, it's cool. I understand. It's Sabretooth. You're you. Life is like that. When the baby's born, put it up for adoption, come home, get back to work. And Seraph's attitude is, no.
Yeah.
My kid, I'll raise him. So, okay, you're fired.
Yeah.
So that's where she ends up on Earth.
Definitely.
So that's where the twin, in my vision of the character, that's where the twin aspects of his personality come from. The demon, not the demon, but the wild thing in his soul comes from Sabretooth. The saint in his soul, in effect, comes from Seraph. Yeah. And that's why they're constantly at war. And the reason Sabretooth challenges him every year is because he's a dad. He's pissed off. Yeah. You're following your mother's lead. Why aren't you following mine? And Logan is a teenage boy whose attitude is screw you.
yeah, kill me if you want.
I'm gonna say no just to piss you off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a brilliant character aspect there. But let me take you back to the X-Men and just discussing, characters.
Well, I'm gonna throw in one more little tidbit.
Well, if you all right, we're gonna let you just because you're Chris Claremont. Go on.
Thank you. That's right. And because I'm an arrogant Brit.
listen, we take them all here. Go on.
The thing is, there are two great passions in the Marvel X canon. Wolverine's love for Mariko, and Jean's love for Scott.
I do want to get into this. So yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Well, but there's another aspect to it.
Yeah.
Because Jean, like it or not, is Phoenix. Phoenix is Jean. Logan is Wolverine.
Yeah.
They are both functionally immortal. So even though their love for Scott and Mariko is totally legitimate, like it or not, it will only last at best 125, 150 years. And then those two elements of their lives will fade away. They keep going. The idea is Phoenix is the soul of life in creation, but life is a binary equation. She needs a trigger.
Yeah.
So at the end of creation, there's a rock, a planet orbiting the last sun in existence, all the dimensions, all the alternate worlds, everything, all the lights are out except for this one. And Logan's waiting patiently, as he's been waiting for a long time. And the in-joke in this is that way off in the distance to his right is this little blotch on the horizon, which if you were to go all the way down there, you would find 1,000-mile high TARDIS. And surrounded by in ruins, surrounded by a chain link fence on which is a big sign saying, property of the British Broadcasting Corporation, no trespassers allowed. We mean you, Claremont.
Doctor Who, is that character you'd love to write for?
Actually, the character I've always wanted to write for is Modesty Blaze.
Really?
Yeah. But sadly, Peter O'Donnell died, and Neil Gaiman got there first.
Yeah, X-Men, you know what? An X-Men, Doctor Who crossover would be brilliant. And was it you that did the X-Men Teen Titans crossover?
Yes.
Yeah,
Lots
exactly.
happening now.
I recently had on current writer of the Suicide Squad for DC Comics, Robbie Thompson, and he said that was the comic book that got him into comics because he saw it. So yeah, exactly. You know, you're inspiring the future there. So Robbie, if you're watching this one's for you. But yeah,
Yeah, the thing I hate is I'm still working and I have to compete with all these people who are in here because they read my stuff.
yeah,
It's like I'm talking to myself. But on the other side of the rock where Logan's sitting is a door. And
yeah.
every so often the door opens and out comes Kitty or Kate Pride with dinner. And they sit down, they have dinner together because Kate, much to her annoyance, didn't read the fine print when she was asked to sign a deal making her the guardian of forever.
Is
She didn't
Lockheed
realize
is Lockheed
forever
there
is
as
the
well?
real thing.
Is Lockheed there as well?
Of course,
Okay, yeah, a few for a second
because
there.
Lockheed watches her
Yeah.
back always.
Yeah, you know, and that's why I think that you did create Lockheed, correct?
Yeah.
That he's your greatest creation. I mean, I love Gambit, but it's just Lockheed. Lockheed is just such a great character.
But no argument. So anyway, when you get to the end of the sun's about to go out, and then a light appears overhead and it coalesces into the form of the redhead, and she lands, and she and Logan pick up where they left off billions of years ago. And they've both been waiting a long time, and it's a very passionate embrace, and then the lights go out. And everything is still for about, because it's fantasy, 7 seconds. And then the James Bond theme sounds, and boom, light explodes out of the darkness, and creation is reborn all over again. So this is the circular, for me anyway, this is the circular reality of existence, that creation is a recurring element. Each chapter of it has a lifespan, and then the universe comes back and takes another shot.
Yeah.
And Kitty watches its back, but Logan and Jean are the two catalysts that bring it all about. No, this will never see print. No, Disney will never let Marvel get away with it, even if Marvel wanted to, which it doesn't. But this is where I see this all going. I think big.
I think that's a brilliant way. I think if we ever, you know, do get to see you work on X-Men again, I think that'd be a brilliant way for your run to end. That's such a good idea.
But the problem is, when I wrote X-Men The End,
yeah,
the minute I finished it, I had another idea. So I did, you know.
Even after 17 years, you can still say, right, I have a new idea for this character.
Well, you say it's a 17 years continuous run, but this has been a part of my life for a half century, God helping. And I still have ideas. I mean, I look at the stuff that's happening now with Krakoa, and boy, I could play with some of that. It would be cool, because
definitely.
It's, you know, I know the characters, or at least I used to know the characters, but I know there are elements of the world that the X-Men are still relevant to, and the world is still relevant to them, and to life itself, the lives of the characters, the lives of the people, because I've always found it very hard to think of them as characters. To me, they are people. To me, we are eavesdropping on their lives.
Yeah.
Which means, A, I need to treat them with respect, but B, I need to have things happen with them and directions that they choose to go that make them interesting and exciting for you as the reader.
Yeah. And that's something that I love in your work. Like, we see, you know, they're treated like people. Like, we see, like, and this is something that's kind of baffled me. Like, in one of my favorite stories of all time, and my favorite story title, I can safely say, God Loves, Man Kills. What a title. But we can see all these different characters who are like, you know, people, and there's people like Magneto who you gave, you know, character depth to, and like, yeah, you could say he's a bad person, but he believes in something, and doesn't that kind of make us all good? And then you see, like, Trial of Magneto, there is this other side to him, and you see all these characters, like, you know, they have these different mindsets, different views, you know, some of them are more accepting, some of them aren't. So is it important for you to kind of give them all their own, you know, attributes, and just kind of delve into them as people?
Well, I mean, the idea with God Loves was, the point of the story was if you had only one X book to read ever in your life, that would be it. Because in that way, it would be all of the aspects of the canon, all of the elements of the characters,
Yeah.
true to the ongoing series, but it's a story with a specific beginning, middle, and end. The story being the best of people, for the best of reasons, can walk down a path that, in a basic term, leads to hell, whereas someone you think is a villain
Yeah.
and who's always presented as a villain can find himself going the other way, because it's where you draw the line. And Charles coming to the realization that maybe I made a mistake. Maybe Eric's way is the right way. And then Scott is the one who draws him back and says, no, you're not, because you inspire us. Eric wants to slam the right way down from above. We want to grow it from within. And I think that's, to me, the essence of where it all goes is it's making choices. See, I've never, one of the things that I was most frustrated with, and which part of what led to me separating from Marvel the first time, is that what I wanted to do with Magneto is, firstly, Charlie essentially blackmails him into taking over the school and becoming headmaster.
Oh yeah.
I'm dying. Do it for me, my friend. And it's like, give me a break. But for the first time, Eric finds himself responsible for children. I mean, one of the primal moments in X-Men 150 is when he reacts automatically to Kitty's trying to save the others and slaps her down the way he'd do with Cyclops or Aurora or anybody else.
Yeah.
Too late realizing he's just struck down a child, which pushes all sorts of his buttons, having lost his own child.
Yeah.
In his, back in the 40s. And this is where, Aurora almost goes berserk. If you've hurt her, you're dead. And he says, fine, do it. I'm not going to fight. I've committed an unforgivable thing. So my thought was, wouldn't it be cool if he became the headmaster? Because in the school you have Illyana, who, from her perspective, I'm evil. I love that I'm evil. I'm 99.9% evil. Whoopee! Except that 0.01%.
Yes.
That's Illyana, not magic. No, I want to be me. I want to be free to make my own choice. I don't want to be you. And so she's holding on to Magneto, who's holding on to her, but Magneto's also holding on. There's also this part of his personality, which is, oh my gosh, there's a conflict, but I can resolve the conflict really easily. All I have to do is just take this itty bitty teeny tiny step over the line and do something wrong. But it's only a little step. Nobody will notice, and I'll step back. And what he's refusing to recognize is that each time he makes that little step, the line moves, and before he knows it, he'll be villain again, which means the other New Mutants are desperately holding on to him and hauling him back from that moment of self-destruction. So from my perspective as the writer, I have all this inherent conflict going on, plus the opportunity for the kids to relate to other kids in the surrounding schools, to do, to go to mixers, to go out on dates, to have work projects, for Doug Ramsey to lead them out of the shell of Xavier's school and get them involved in cool stuff that younger readers would look at and think, oh, that's a lot like my life. Wait, are there mutants in the other schools in my, could the primary school down the road? Who knows? That for me is fun. And and I thought if I could redeem Magneto, which is much more intriguing to me, because Charlie's perfect. There's nothing you can do with him other than diminish him. But Magneto is a constant struggle to be a better man. And if I could get away with that, A, it would make the book a lot more interesting, I thought, to the readers. And B, okay, I have a whole bunch of brand new villains who are even more despicable. And we could evolve a better set of antagonists for the team and the readers.
Yeah, and you just brought up like a really fascinating point there about someone bad turning good. And then you look at Dark Phoenix Saga, which I don't know if you could say it's a good person accidentally turning bad, maybe. But it was like you get to kind of play the opposite end of that whole Magneto dynamic with Jean Grey. And, you know, what made you say I want to kill this character?
Well, because it wasn't, okay. The thing with Jean was that in my vision of the Pantheon, Jean was and is always Dark Phoenix. But she wasn't supposed to become Dark Phoenix for maybe 1,000,000 years. It would be a descendant of Jean.
Yeah.
Because she's not ready for it now. So suddenly she becomes Phoenix. She saves the universe. Whoopee! But she's now tapped into more power than any normal human can handle. And what happens is it reaches into the id, the back brain, where all the emotions are buried, or all the dark dreams that no one ever thinks of. You know, it's like in one of the issues, she looks at her father and sees what he keeps locked behind the doors of his inner self. Those thoughts, those dreams, those stupid desires that we all have, which we would never look at twice, much less once, but they're all there in our subconscious.
Yeah.
But she sees them perfectly clearly, and it's like, ugh, Dad, shame on you. But so she flies across the galaxy, and she's hungry. So she eats a star. She has no idea there's an inhabited planet around the star, because people, no matter how advanced, are like insects to her, less than insects. They're pieces of sand on the beach that might someday grow into something precious. But at this point in her life, they're nothing.
Yeah,
but she's dealing with it purely on the basis of emotion and desire. Her brain hasn't caught up with her. Her conscience hasn't caught up with her. And every step after that to the end of Dark Phoenix, of the first of the setups, is her, basically the X-Men trying to re-establish contact with that human part of her, or stop her. And, you know, the idea, the original part, the original ending, neither John nor I considered killing her, simply because you can't do that. It's wrong. She's a mainstream character. I wish we could, but we can't. Except that Jim Shooter, as editor-in-chief, said, whoa, guys, she just killed 5.5 billion people. There has to be a reckoning. You can't just say, give her a get out of jail free card. Which is what the original story did.
Oh, right.
So the options we had were she could either go to prison for the rest of her life, which meant that the next 10 years of X-Men would have been Jean's in galactic prison. We have to break her free. We succeed, we run, we're captured, they put her back in prison. We try again, we fail. We try again, we succeed, yada, 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 which for me was incredibly boring. Or we kill her.
And you were like, she goes, she dies.
Yeah, and that was basically it. I said, yes, she dies.
Because
because that was the right way to do it. And the beauty of it, the wonderful, unforgettable wonder of that moment was no effing internet.
Oh, could you imagine if you did that? Even though it's such a perfect story arc, people would still find a way to complain. They'd probably pull something out of their
No,
ass.
no,
Like,
no. It's not
no.
that complaining doesn't bother me. They complain like hell, but no one saw it coming.
Oh,
We had to
yeah. That
rewrite
must.
the.
Yeah.
We had to rewrite. I had to rewrite. John had to repencil. Terry had to re-ink. We had to redo the last 6 pages of the giant size. Basically 4 weeks before publication.
Wow.
We did it. We sent it out. We kept our mouths shut for 3 weeks, and because the book had been solicited months earlier with end of the Phoenix Saga, yada yada yada. When it actually got on sale, nobody had seen it coming. We had done the unimaginable. We had killed off one of the distaff half of the third oldest romantic relationship in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
And no one believed we'd done it. Even the characters didn't believe we'd done it.
Yeah.
And then, but we did. And that to me made all the difference, and why 5 years later I was so pissed off when X Factor came along and they brought her back. Because
Oh, yeah, yeah.
for me, it meant the readers had no choice but to accept the reality of the X-Men's lives, which was, it was for real. We killed Thunderbird. He never came back. We've just killed Jean. She's never going to come back. When we put them at risk, it's for real.
There's collateral to these things. Like, people are going to pay the price. Yeah.
Well,
And
it's just that it's suspense. It's not like, yeah, he's got a 5-year contract. They're going to save him. No. Life is real. Death is real. Let's see where we can go with this. And so Scott moves on, has a new life. We teased there 5 Ways from a Sunday with Madeline, but the whole point of that was it was Scott coming to terms with the fact that the woman he loved is dead, and he's just fallen in love with another woman for real. Coincidentally, it looks just like his dead girlfriend.
yeah.
But he was moving on. They had a kid. Life, for me, Scott was no longer going to be an active part of the X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
And when I heard about X Factor, my counter pitch was, don't do this, because now you're compounding the flaw by Scott walking out on his wife and his newborn baby to go back to his old girlfriend. I mean, there was no way I could defend that. There's no way I could respect anybody who defended that, much less the person who actually did it.
Yeah.
You would destroy him as a character. So my pitch was, leave Jean dead, have Scott go back with Madeline to become head of X Factor, bring in Jean's sister to be the living Cerebro who finds everybody, and oh my gosh, give Hank and Bobby and Warren something to do.
Yeah. And I love Warren. What a great character. And so what I love there is how you brought up another character, Cyclops. And now I think Cyclops gets a lot of flack. People say, oh, he's just a Boy Scout. He's a bland character. What do you make of that? Because you did some really
walked out on
interesting
his
stuff.
wife and kid.
Yeah, which does make him irredeemable in some senses. But what do you think of that character,
Well, that
Cyclops?
probably explains why he's so vulnerable to Emma.
Yeah. And so what do you make of that character of Cyclops? Do you think he's necessary? Maybe not maybe you find him. I think sometimes in some runs, he's a good person, of course, and some other times he's done some dodgy stuff. But I think he's a great character. What do you make of the character of Cyclops? How fun was it for you?
Hang on a second, let me close the door.
Oh, it's no problem at all. And also, everyone, while I have a minute here, I picked up some fantastic books here from a few different amazing comic book stores. Dublin City Comics, Sub City Comics, and Big Bang Comics, all Irish comic book stores, which you should go check out. But yeah, so what was it like getting to work on Cyclops as a character?
Well, I thought, to me, Cyclops is I guess you could say he's the moral center of the team. He's Charlie's, he's the guy around which everybody else focuses, simply because he's the natural leader.
Yeah.
Which means you have to hold him to a higher standard than everybody else. But it's just that's why I was so pissed off with with him, with the whole Madeline circumstance. It put Louise Simonson and me in an awful position, because we had, just to make things work coherently, we had to destroy all the work we'd done for 5 years, plus the character. And I've always felt that was wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
But they're not my characters.
I think it's fair to say that most of these characters you gave a life to, and you breathed it into them, and you turn them into things that they are. Like you look at what most recent X-Men film, Dark Phoenix. I wonder where they got that from. Of course, brilliant. And you also Days of the Future Past, which is one of my favorite films. You're in Days of the Future Past. Am I correct in saying so? You're the senator in Days of Future Past.
Oh, in the movie. Sorry.
Yeah.
In the script, I'm a senator. In the actual movie, I think Len Wein and I are congressmen.
Oh yeah, congressman. Yeah. And yeah, it was like getting.
No, I thought that was, of the entire run of X movies, I think that one's the best, simply because it actually follows the story.
Yeah, absolutely. You must have been your prediction in 2013. Are you kind of happy that you weren't too correct?
Which prediction?
In Days of Future Past, it's set in 2013, and of course, we see that's kind of a better world that they live in, as opposed to, or am I mistaken in saying that?
No, I just think it's hard to say, because 2022 is the year of Soylent Green.
Yeah,
really awful Charlton Heston movie.
Honestly, a sentry might just walk by my house right now, and I wouldn't even put it. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
I think
that's
the perfect way. But yeah, Days of Future Past. How did that even come about to you? Was that one of your first story arcs, or no? Was that a little bit later in your run?
No, Days of Future Past was the last one that John and I did together.
It was the last one you and John did together. Oh wow, what was it like getting to work on that?
At that point, we were so pissed at each other. It's a miracle. No, because John had apparently gone to Jim Shooter and said, Chris goes or I go. Because John didn't like what I was doing, and he wanted to write the book. And Jim Shooter's decision was that Chris, for better or worse, the X-Men being here is Chris's fault. Therefore, I'll leave him on that book and I'll give you the FF.
Yeah.
And that's, though the interesting thing from my perspective is that if you'd gone the other way, you can see where John's head was at just by looking at the layouts and such he's been doing, or the pencils he's been doing on his website. These are the stories that I would have done. Whereas for me, all the characters I created, except for Kitty, came after John left.
Yeah. Oh, like Gambit and all those other characters.
Yeah, everything was after post John. So it would have been interesting if we'd gotten to the year 2000 with Mystique and Destiny and Rogue, and
because they were all in your Miss Marvel run, right? They weren't in your X-Men.
Yeah. They would have been Avengers characters.
Could you imagine Mystique in the Avengers?
Oh, yeah, I could actually.
Yeah, actually, she wouldn't be a bad Avengers member. Shapeshifting.
No, but that's the point. It's like, yeah, I mean, it would have put Captain Marvel, the Captain Marvel movie, in a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Because the inside joke with that was when they were formatting the concept for the movie, the frustration was that the original Captain Marvel, the male Captain Marvel, is basically just a big guy who hits things, which it's boring.
Yeah.
So they were trying to figure out what they could do to give Carol Danvers a great visual, at which point Kevin Feige thought, oh, I know what we can do. What? Well, if you look at the comics, they turn her into Binary. Binary has all of Phoenix's powers. So nobody at Fox will notice, because Disney's in the process of trying to buy Fox. So we'll just sneak in, grab the powers, and give them to Captain Marvel. Who's going to notice?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there watching the movie, and when she zooms up out of the atmosphere and blows up one of Ronan's ships, and is just hovering there in a classic Phoenix pose with what looks an awful lot to me like Phoenix crackling around her, I was a little irked.
Yeah, yeah, no, but that just shows your inspiration still continues to exist in all these different films, and I'm sure will continue if they ever do reboot the X-Men.
Well, the problem was that at the same time, Fox is producing Dark Phoenix, which is Simon Kinberg's way of making up for X3.
Oh, really?
Which was a disaster any way you look at it. And the problem was, it turns out, apparently, Dark Phoenix and Captain Marvel have the same third act.
Oh, really? I've actually never noticed that before. Is that
Well,
it?
but if you think about it, oh wait, Jean confronts the Dabari. The Dabari can't come after her. If it ends with a big space battle, the Dabari, it's perfect Dark Phoenix stuff. But so the deal, the edict that came down was that Simon had to redo the third act. So everything, have you seen it?
Yes, I have, of course. Yeah, I went to the cinemas to watch
everything from the moment everybody's on the train.
Yeah.
That was reshot.
That's
it actually? New film. Yeah.
Oh, right.
But that's also why the film was delayed for over a year before it came out, because they had to get everybody back together again. And if you read anything about Hollywood, you realize everybody's booked years in advance.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of free time in their shooting schedules, especially for a cast that big. So and the other side of the coin was, at no point in the movie can Jean use anything resembling Phoenix powers. Because then she'd look just like Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Oh,
so man. That's why I assume Jean suddenly has a bad skin condition. Lots of, and at no point in the movie can the Phoenix itself be shown.
Damn.
So you've got a movie called Dark Phoenix where the word Phoenix, much less Dark Phoenix, is never uttered in the film.
Man, that's crazy. But yeah, let me ask you this. Is there any characters you create you'd like to see up on the big screen, like Forge, or is there any specific character you'd love to see put up there? Because you've already gotten to see so much of them. But there one in particular?
I wrote a treatment for Gambit years ago for Channing Tatum when Lauren Schuler Donner was trying to get a Gambit film off the ground for Fox, and it went to Channing Tatum, and then everything at Fox went up in smoke because of the merger.
But I know Channing Tatum's very interested in the character of Gambit.
But I think he has his own ideas. I know I'm not on his radar, so.
Yeah, I think Gambit's, and so you've an upcoming Gambit miniseries or just series in general coming out. Give me the perfect segue to talk about. So that comes out sometime in 2022. But yeah, what's it like? What's it like getting to return to everyone's favorite, Rogue Gambit? What's it like getting come back to him?
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, really. And so this is it a miniseries?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the artist on this is Sid Cotain, who is insanely talented, so good. But yeah, so it was like getting to return to Gambit, and especially getting to work on this character, right? Is it kind of amazing to you that because this character you created all these years ago, there's still these huge characters in the public eye and you still get to work on them?
Well, the problem is for me, and this is me speaking out of turn.
Yeah.
Is all the other people who've made significant changes of them in the time since. I mean, I thought I was being totally clear back in Uncanny when Jim Lee and I were doing the initial arc with Logan and Psylocke, where she turns into an Asian character.
Yeah.
And it was originally only supposed to be for that 3-parter. But the audience response was so enthusiastic that Marvel said, let's keep it going for a while. But I thought I'd written it very specifically that Mojo had made the change. Mojo and Pyro. Apparently not.
No.
And this is where you get this whole thing where Fabian Nicieza created this character Quanon, and somehow her brain was switched with her life essence was switched with Carol's, and now it's, you know, it's part of the canon. But for me, it was like, why take something simple and make it more complicated to the detriment of all of them? You know, but that's the way it is. You know, I'm not responsible for what other people do when I'm not in the room.
Yeah.
But when I come back in the room to write stuff, I have to pay attention to it.
Yeah,
Which
definitely.
is
And so do you,
an
because
interesting experience.
did you have to do any research for working on the Gambit series? Do you have to look back some of his recent Gambit appearances, or could you just go
No,
straight
because
in?
the Gambit series is set at a specific point of time during my run.
Oh, so is there anything you can tell us about the series, or is it all hush hush until we get to see it come
It's
out?
5 issues.
5 issues. Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely.
5 issues, 3 stories. It tries something very rare in comics these days, which is called a sense of humor.
Oh, and Gambit is the perfect book to do that in. But will we see any other X-Men
Oh, yeah.
members, or is it Gambit?
Oh,
Is it just a Gambit?
it's got romance.
Oh, brilliant. So will we see
And
any
you maybe
other?
learn secrets about his past.
Oh, right. And in 5 issues, it's all going to be action packed. Everyone make sure to stay tuned for that. But
so you have to understand, again, this is my fault. I was taught by Stan. Stan's rule is every issue, comics are single issue stories. Why? Because we can't guarantee the distribution. And even when you can guarantee the distribution, don't push your luck. If you have a really good story, you can do a 2-parter. If you're talking about the coming of Galactus, you can go to 3 issues. The last 8 pages have to be Johnny Storm going off to college or the equivalent. The point is, get on, say your piece, get off. Don't spend 5 or 8 or 10 issues or 40 issues crossing over 7 different titles to tell a story, because you can never guarantee the reader will get all of these stories. And if, God forbid, there's a dud along the way, what do you do then? You know, or if the story turns out not to be as enticing as you thought it was, you're stuck with it. And so if you look through Dark Phoenix itself, it's all told in 1-part stories, 2-part stories, until you get to the end, which does turn out to be a 3-part story, but only because we had to end with the double-sized issue and a surprise. But the point, you give everybody a chance to get on or get off, or to tell all their friends and they can get on.
Oh, yeah.
But if you pick up a story and you must go back and read 20 other issues scattered over 5 or 6 or 7 titles, that's, you know, some might find it too challenging or too expensive. And it's, for me anyway, I used to write team up. I love Spider-Man. I like the Avengers. I've done them all, but I want you to fall in love with the X-Men, with Uncanny, with my guys.
Yeah.
What you do with the other books is your business. But the first thing, you know, back in the day, it was so cool to realize that people would actually queue up in front of the comic stores on the 3rd Thursday of every month when X-Men came out. That was like, holy crumb cakes. That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's what, as a writer, that's what one wants. You want people to queue up. You want people, when I was young and went to the first public showing of Star Wars.
Yeah.
4, now 4, but Star Wars.
New Hope. Yes.
It was a 11:30 in the morning show. I got there at like 10 o'clock, walked into the theater, sat down. The theater was empty. And gradually over the next hour, people wandered in. So when the film started, it was figured 95% full, but it was not like, here comes the big event. And then, you know, you had the opening scene with Leah's escape, with the transport, and then the Star Destroyer coming by, and you're thinking, whoa. And 2 hours later, it was like, this is incredible. And I walked out of the cinema, and the queue was 3 complete circles around a Manhattan city block.
No way.
You have to figure there was at least a kilometer of line. And it stayed there for 30 days.
Amazing.
People just had to see this. And that's the impact you want to have with a story. You want people to queue up to buy it. You want people to passionately argue about it in fan forums or online. You want this to be a mega moment for the right reasons, because these are characters that the readers are in love with, in a story that puts the reader on the edge of their seats and desperate to find out what happens next. And if you can't do that, if you don't do that, what the hell is the point? Especially when you're paying, let's see, $3 is what, €1.75?
Yeah.
€1.50?
Yes.
It's serious cash. You want people to go tell their friends and say, you've got to buy this book. And what the hell happened before this? And what the heck's going to happen next? That's what this is all about. It's like people sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for the next movie, for George Lucas to produce the next Star Wars movie. Why? Because it means something. Because we're left, it's a serial, and oh my God, Luke's lost his arm. Han's frozen on ice. What are we going to do? Unfortunately, the conclusion wasn't what we all hoped for. Damn Ewoks. But that's
I love the Ewoks. So I'll debate you on this. I love
better
the Ewoks
you than
so
me.
much.
No, I'll pass on that.
Yip,
No,
yip, indeed.
This in the classic terms, this is a Saturday afternoon matinee. You want people there. You want them committed. You want them to fall in love. It's a seduction. And I think what I fear about the current generation of comics, going back, I guess, to the turn of the century, is a lot of people sometimes take that for granted. And that's wrong.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
I mean,
yeah, no, like you look at your run and like you talk about that, and it's still loved by some. And like there's a Twitter account just called the Claremont Run, and it's run by some fantastic people. And like every day they just talk about your run, and people are commenting about what they love. So you still have like an outstanding legacy on the X-Men. And so, do you kind of look at the X-Men as, obviously this metaphor for minority? And so is that important for you to kind of, show throughout your work?
It wasn't important. It's the wrong word. It's just natural. This is organic. It's things growing out of who the people are and what the stories are. But the other point about it, which the incredible gift, oddly enough, is being published in those days under the Comics Code. We were specifically limited in terms of what we could say, how we could say it, how we could present reality. There were words we couldn't use, actions we couldn't do. But that didn't matter. Why? Because if you're any good as a writer, if one is any good as a writer, if you put an obstacle in the road, you just figure out a way around.
Definitely.
One could basically convey anything and subtlety that perhaps a really young reader wouldn't notice.
Yeah.
But as the reader got older, so I've got 17 years of work that grandfathers can give to their children, and fathers can give to their, or mothers, I should say, can give to their children, and the children can give to their children if they're interested. It's all accessible, and most of the characters are nice. So that's less apparent today. And it, like I said, it's much more complicated. And I'm not going to argue. I'm working on my third generation of readers. This is so cool. You have no idea.
Yeah, after like I'm going to be picking up that Gambit book. I'm so excited to read it because Gambit's one of my favorite. He probably is my favorite X-Men of all time. I think he's just so cool. It's one of my favorite creations. Like when I met you at the Irish Comic Con IRL, Irish Comic Con a few years ago, they were selling this Gambit first appearance, and it was just because you were there, and then you someone to buy and get a sign. I was kind of like, okay, I brought loads of my birthday money just for this convention. It's like that's the Gambit first appearance. The Gambit creators over there. I could have a signed Gambit first appearance, and it was like that. I barely even thought about it. I grabbed it, got a sign. It's one of my prizes for that. I couldn't take it down because it's framed on my bedroom wall, so I have it right there, in very nice comic frame. So yeah, Gambit's one of my favorite characters. I'm so excited for his upcoming series. But let me ask, what was it like getting to write that?
You're luckier than I am because all my Gambits vanished.
Oh really? You don't have a Gambit first appearance?
No.
That's crazy. How can you not have one yet? Do you still not get comps from Marvel?
It's been a long time. And accidents happen.
Yeah. Well, not to brag, but mine is signed by Chris Claremont, so not to brag. It's authentic as well. Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you, what was it like getting to write that dynamic between Gambit and Rogue? What was it like getting to write that dynamic between those two characters?
Well, the irony was the Gambit that exists is nothing like the Gambit I created.
Oh yeah.
I had a totally different origin conceived of.
Oh wow. And so is this new Gambit running the same universe as your X-Men run?
Oh yeah, no, everything I write for Marvel is consistent with Marvel continuity.
Oh yeah.
But
no reboots, right?
If I hadn't left, the Gambit I would have written would have been a vastly different character. His target he was there to seduce and destroy the core character of the next generation of X-Men, which is Pride.
Oh, really? Oh, that's really interesting. And I love that there's always kind of there's that, I don't know if you say anti-hero aspect of Gambit, because he's sometimes he can toe that line because he's a gambler, a hustler, stuff like that. But he is always, I guess, on the side of angels. I don't know if that's the correct term for it. So is it fun for you to get to play with kind of the more morally ambiguous?
I had a much nastier Gambit in mind.
Oh yeah? One that would kind of end up
because
betraying?
if you're a thief, what better thing to do than steal the future from the X-Men?
Wow, that's brilliant. And I can't wait. That's why I'm so excited to hear Gambit, and I'm so excited we're finally getting one. And I know everyone.
This Gambit is totally consistent for the most part with the current Gambit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it shows you elements of his past that were hitherto unsuspected.
Yeah, and it just shows how all of these characters, go through they go through these phases where they also change, just like people do. They change as characters, and I think that's one of the brilliant things about writing a team book. So my next question, just before we move on from Gambit, I want to shout out Big Bang Comics, who I know love Gambit. They think he's a brilliant character. But this one's for you. I get to introduce the Gambit creator, and I know how much you guys love Gambit. But yeah, so getting to work on a team book, was it difficult for you to kind of keep track of everyone? Because I know it's summarized, they kind of struggle with, okay, I have to give this character their moment, or I have to give this character their moment. But for you, in your run, it just seems so natural. Like there are always these interwoven plots going from each issue. So did it just come naturally to you?
Yep.
Oh, really? So you didn't struggle with that at all?
No, I won't say that, but that's what a good editor is for.
Oh, and so yeah, you got to work with quite a few editors.
In Louise Jones's or Louise Simonson's or Anne Nocenti's office and just saying, I have no ideas. And they, well, but haven't you, you keep talking about this character and that character and this one and that. Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Now all we need is you on a Banshee series, and then Banshee and Siren, and then life is complete, When he said, you can't say that, they're both Irish. That means that automatically makes them your brilliant characters. Did you
come up with something? No, I'd much rather come up with something more interesting for Ireland.
Oh, didn't you come up with, was it you that came up with Black Tom Cassidy, or is that another writer?
Oh, yeah. No,
Thank you so much for coming up.
Now, for some reason, he's turned into a giant tree. Or he's like half tree and the bonded with the core of Krakoa.
Yeah, that's fine. But he said he wants Mayo to win in the Sam Maguire. That's character breaking. He would never say that. Can you just confirm he wants Dublin to win in the Sam Maguire? Can you confirm that for everyone right now?
contractually being under the Disney rule of the world, I can neither confirm nor deny.
I knew Mayo would take over the world. It was only soon enough. We gave them all the chances. Canonically,
Sorry.
Black Tom would want Mayo to win the Sam Maguire. I guess you win some, you lose some. I'm gonna go to Marvel and make Wolverine say up the Dublin for the Sam Maguire. Everyone just watch that. That's gonna be my new job. Then I can just leave comics. That's all I really want to do. But yeah, absolutely. And so, was there ever a character you would have loved to explore more? Like, if you got a chance to remember under X-Men, is there any character in particular? Maybe you've never. Well, I'd say never got to work. And you got to work on so much. But is there any character you'd like to explore a bit more?
You mean outside of the X canon or in the X canon?
Maybe both. Is there any character in or outside of X canon you'd like to explore?
In comics?
Yeah.
Not really.
No,
I mean,
really.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Yeah, there are lots of characters. Well, I mean, my characters that I'd love to play with, but in terms of other, I mean, I've written just about everybody.
Oh yeah, and so let me ask you, with all your characters, if you could give another one of your characters a miniseries like Gambit, is there a character you have an idea for, or one you like that you created that you just love to write for again?
Oh, lots.
Oh yeah, any in particular?
Yeah.
I assume you can't say.
Continuity is blocked out years in advance in the current regime. So I am told that there's no point in saying something that's not going to happen. I'd rather keep it under my vest, and if the opportunity arises, I'll talk about it up, down, and sideways.
Brilliant.
That said, there is a concept that we're playing with.
Lockheed.
Marvel and I are playing with that might be intriguing. You'll just have to wait, as I will, have to wait and see.
All right, hear me out. What if we have Lockheed and Black Tom Cassidy team up? How does that sound? It makes sense in story-wise when you really think about it, because dragons and Irish people. Obviously, no, I can't sell you on it.
Well, you have to understand, Lockheed. I think what everyone has forgotten is Lockheed is from way, 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 way across galactic space. I mean, at least a couple of dozen galaxies back there. And he's someone that the Brood are terrified of. And you have what everyone's forgotten is
Lockheed's a real G. He's
A, the Brood are not to be treated lightly, and B, if they're scared of him, there has to be a reason. And do you really want to find out? And everyone just treats him as like a pet, and he's not.
I know he's a world-ending pet, but he's like, he has adorable eyes, even though he's a world-ending pet that could probably kill everyone. You take that risk, I think. If we could all have a pet dragon named Lockheed, we do. Would you take that opportunity?
What?
Having a pet dragon named Lockheed?
No, he's not a pet.
He's not a pet. Okay, well,
No, but the relationship between him and Kitty, at least the way I was defined it, is it's best friends.
Best friend. I'd love to be best friends with a dragon. You're just making this sound even sweeter for me. Would you like to be best friends with a dragon then?
You think I'm not?
Okay, we can just finish up the interview. That's the best thing we could possibly end on. Chris Claremont just confirmed he's friends with a dragon. How can all of us mere mortals be best friends with a dragon? Just believing in ourselves?
I can't. I mean, I know how I know.
He's behind the camera, isn't he?
I'm not sure the same applies to anyone else. So.
I know for a fact she's behind the camera. That confirms it. Chris Claremont is friends with Dragon. But one of my last final questions before we wrap up, because I've taken up so much of your time. Just one last question in regards to the X-Men. What do the X-Men mean to you? Who are these characters? What a concept? What does the X-Men mean to you?
Well, aside from the basic one of a steady paycheck.
Yes.
The X-Men have always been about the value of seeing people for who they truly are, not who you might imagine them to be. They're not defined. It's like Kurt, easiest and most natural thing in the world is to look at Kurt Wagner and think demon, but he's not.
Yeah.
The point is, yes, they are mutants. Yes, they are different. Yes, they are scary.
Yeah.
So what? It's like, it's about finding a way for people to see each other as people, as neighbors, as friends, not as, well, I'm one religion, you're the other religion. I believe in one government, you believe in the one across the water. We should hate each other. It's like, to me, I mean, the first time I was in Dublin and for a World Writers Conference, and it was,
Oh, wow.
it was the coolest thing. I mean, holy cow, Dublin. Not to mention the fact that there was a restaurant that we passed, a bar that had Captain America posters outside. But that it was so hard for other people to come down from the north, because you had to go through it and
Yes.
security and this and that and whatever. It's like, why do we make things so hard? Why are there walls between East and West Germany? Wouldn't it be easier if we just could shake hands and figure out how not to draw lines, to give everybody a chance to move ahead as friends, to listen to one another, to try and build
Absolutely.
bridges, to maybe they have something to offer, a drink that you've never drunk, a recipe that, wow, this is really good, or this sucks, you got to try again. Okay, there are so many easy cliches which have led to such disastrous outcomes. Why is it so hard to learn? Maybe we should try something different just to see if we can't make it better. And if we can make it better, why do we want to go back to the way things were and start hitting each other again? That's absurd. Or to me, it's absurd. It's sometimes people find it so easy to draw the line in the sand and turn it into a giant chasm, as opposed to drawing a line in the sand, then drawing 3 more lines, and suddenly you've got a game of tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a stupid cliche, but why does it have to be so hard to be good neighbors and maybe even friends? Because then you might learn something. You might new kinds of music, new ways of dressing, new food. Just give it a shot. The worst that can happen is you don't knock on the neighbor's door every week anymore or hang out with them. But if you do, you could learn something, and learning something could make things better. And why is that such an antithesis to a lot of people, or to people? Why are they so scared?
Yeah.
I mean, we're all on this earth for a terrifyingly limited amount of time.
Yeah.
Surely there should be ways to make that experience more beneficial and positive for everyone.
Yeah.
It's like, and it is a cliche, I suppose, but I keep,
Yeah. I couldn't have put it any perfectly
keep
myself.
trying until we get it right.
Yeah, that's what the X-Men is to me, it's just accepting people for what they are, not expecting them to be more, not trying to make them better. Well, you can, suppose in some senses, but just, accepting people what they are face value. I think that's one of the many joys of the X-Men. You put perfectly there. Chris, been such a pleasure talking to you. Sorry, go on.
Well, one last thing though.
Yeah.
Make things better. But if you muck it up, Archie Goodwin, one of the best writers and editors in the business, put it this way. If you screw up an issue, if it's a total disaster, okay, take a deep breath, maybe down a hit of bourbon or whiskey. You got 30 days to fix it.
Yeah.
Important thing is finding a way to make it better.
Absolutely.
It's if someone puts their foot wrong, you don't laugh at them, you don't pound on them, you figure out, okay, how do we fix it? How can we make them or make us feel better? As I said, we're here for a limited amount of time. Let's think of the positive things that can come about from that existence and not focus on how miserable we can make everyone feel or why it's us and not them.
Yeah.
It's us in whole. Let's see where that can lead. And the advantage of the X-Men is when I was writing it, since I defined all the terms, and since the characters are all reflections of my imagination, yes, that's easy-ish. But so try it in real life with just, saying hello to the person next door or the other kids in class or your boss, well, maybe not your boss, but whoever's in the next table.
Yeah.
And see what develops.
It's just kindness.
So the worst thing is you'll be ignored or it won't work. So do you give up or try again?
Yeah.
I hate to say it. The cliche is, oddly enough, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Why is that such a hard thing?
Exactly. That's exactly what I think. I think that's the joy of comics, is that there's something better that we can all believe in. And superheroes, the fundamentals of superheroes, I think, are such an inspiring thing. It's just kindness, being kind into it. Like that does make you, I'm gonna sound like an idiot, that does kind of make you a superhero, just being nice to others. And yeah, you just put it perfectly there. But so my last question, if anyone's looking to get into comic books, what advice would you have for them as a writer?
I would say first, don't quit your day job.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
As a writer, it's just, as a writer, I would say, find something else to write about. Not that I'm not disparaging comics. It's just that it's a very small, focused profession, and it's a craft, and it would be better to focus efforts on perfecting your skills with the broader craft of writing and trying to see what it is you like and want to write about. If that leads you to comics, great. If it leads you to cinema, great. If it leads you to writing news what's Ireland's national radio?
RTE.
RTE, right.
Yeah.
Because I was instinctively going for the Beeb.
Yes.
But I mean, the thing is, not everyone can draw comics. Some people end up becoming Van Gogh.
Yeah.
It's, who knows? You just, the point is, but the craft of writing comics is the craft of writing shorthand.
Definitely,
is telling a story in 100 visual images or less or more. And the key to writing shorthand is learning the craft, perfecting the craft to a larger extent first, and then editing.
Yeah.
But that would be a much longer and more involved conversation than I think either of us has time for at this point.
Absolutely. And everyone.
Oh God, that's right. Wait, it's 9:30.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Here in Ireland, is it? Oh yes, it's just pushing up on 9:30. Brilliant way to
Yeah,
spend my
we've been-
evening.
yeah. Sorry.
No, that's no. Thank you. I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time. Don't worry about me. This has been an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you. Before we finish up, are you on Facebook,
Oh.
Instagram, Twitter for anyone watching?
I'm
you
on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. If you want to come check out Chris Claremont, I think it's. I have no idea what it is.
I'll find the
On
website and link it in
Instagram.
the description, everyone.
Yeah, but by all means, come see what's going on. Join up. I'm only about 4.3651 million followers behind Sophie Turner.
Getting up
I'm
there,
determined
so
to catch
close,
up with her.
almost there. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sorry. Between Sophie and
Famke Jensen. Are you talking
no,
about?
Game of Thrones.
George R. Martin.
No, Starks. The two Stark sisters.
Oh,
There's Sophie.
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. Oh,
My brain's gone out the door.
yeah, name's actually just
Anyway, between
Maisie Williams.
Maisie, thank you.
Yes, she's getting up
That
there.
was, I was so that so could have been a brilliant New Mutants movie, and so wasn't, and she deserves so much better. But that's me, not anyone else.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's. What can I say? I'm a really big fan.
And yeah, it comes through in all your work. Anything you'd like to promote or talk about? Your new Gambit series?
The Gambit series will be out later in the year. The Nightcrawler one-off in X-Men universe, Marvel universe. I'm not sure.
Nice.
It'll be out in the end of February.
Yeah, brilliant. Everyone should go pick it out. And I love how you write
It's
Nightcrawler.
a prequel to the Excalibur Special Edition Giant Size. So if you ever wanted to know how that got started, now you can find out.
Yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic. Everyone make sure to go pick that up. Yeah, but before we finish up, I'll talk to you a little bit off air, Chris. Everyone, you can go follow me over on Twitter at SamboGizmo1. As always, if you have the means, please make sure to donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. There'll be a link for that in the description, everyone. But if you do have the means, it'd be much appreciated. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Go read Chris Claremont's X-Men. Chris, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I'll talk to you a little bit off air. And yeah, everyone, please make sure to like and subscribe. Be excellent to each other. And yeah, stay safe, everyone.